This video is a very brief introduction as to how the Emco 6502 antenna and the Rigol spectrum analyzer work together for testing transmitted frequencies and their bandwidths. This is the Emco 6502 loop antenna. It is used by Underwriters Laboratory and other companies in the business of doing FCC compliance. It's suitable for frequencies between 9 kilohertz to 30 megahertz. This is the Rigol DSA 815 spectrum analyzer. It is suitable for frequencies between 9 kilohertz and 1.5 gigahertz. This is a Cobra handheld CB radio, and it will be used to transmit a signal that will be received by the Emco 6502 loop antenna and the results displayed on the Rigol spectrum analyzer. We have a image here from Wikipedia for CB radio channels and their frequency. If you look here, you'll see that channel 1 on a CB radio is 26.95 megahertz, and the channels go through 1 through 40. And you'll see that 40 is 27.405 megahertz. So that is under the 30 megahertz range of the Emco 6502 loop antenna. We have the spectrum analyzer preset to be within that 40 channel range, and what we're going to do is we're now going to power on we've just now powered on the CB radio, and you can see that it's set to channel 1. Now if we look at the spectrum analyzer results, sorry about that. If you look at the spectrum analyzer results, you'll see that we don't have any signals going above negative 70 dBm. When we use the push to talk on the CB antenna, it's transmitting a signal. And we see that signal showing up. And if you read the marker, it will show 29.64, 29.65 megahertz. If we go back to the Wikipedia article, we see that channel 1 is 29.65 megahertz. So we're transmitting with the CB radio at the 26.9 megahertz as we would expect. But as a test, let's arbitrarily pick another frequency. We'll pick 30 mega, or channel 30, which is 27.305. So we're going to scroll through our channels. We're going to go backwards just to get there faster. This is just like changing the knob on your radio or changing the channel on your television. Okay, so now we're at 30. We'll go back to our spectrum analyzer. We're going to click the push to talk button again. And there we see we have a new signal that's being received. And it is at 27.304. And that's just what we would expect. Now, let's zoom in a little tighter to try to get an idea of the bandwidth of that channel. So, to do that, we're going to change our start frequency to 27.30. 27.3 back 0.3 megahertz, and our stop frequency 27.31 megahertz. Okay, so now we have the display covering a much narrower area. Okay, we're going to do the push to talk. And we now see we have the 27.10, and our bandwidth at this setting, our 20 dB bandwidth, that means if you notice the peak is at -40, our 20 dB bandwidth would go down to -60. So we're seeing that we're covering almost a full division horizontally. And each division, as we have this set, is at 300 hertz. Got right there at 300 hertz. So that's showing that the bandwidth that we're transmitting is at 300 hertz. Now we can narrow that up even further. We're going to change the start frequency to 27.30. We're going to go 4 and see what happens. Stop frequency, we're going to go to 27.306 megahertz. Okay, now we have it set to a very narrow bandwidth, and let's see what happens when we push to talk. Okay, so we're now seeing that our 20 dB bandwidth is at about 1 division, and 1 division is 100 hertz. Now we are we're now at 100 hertz. That's the limits of this Rigol spectrum analyzer. It doesn't go any lower than that, and for FCC compliance at this frequency range, you don't need to go any lower than that. So that concludes our video on use of the Emco 6502 loop antenna with the Rigol spectrum analyzer using the CB walkie-talkie. Thank you.